What's going on, guys? Ivanka Gitman here. Welcome back to the video. Today it is another episode of Sniper Thursday. Now for this one we're going to change it up slightly from what I was planning to do, and I'm actually going to talk about a direct sniper rifle itself. I'm going to talk about one of my favourites and the one that I think is a heavy candidate for the best in the game, and that is the Russian 1895 Marksman variant. Now the reason I want to talk about this rifle in particular is because it has quickly become one of my favourites, and I think it is a definite candidate for best sniper rifle in the game. If you look at its stats, statistically it is amazing. It does 80% damage minimum and 100 damage at maximum, of course, in that sweet spot. Now the sweet spot is between 60 and 98 meters. That's actually pretty good. It's a good distance to the point where you can get some long range shots, but it's not too far away to the point where you're really going to be at a distance where you have to really lead shots or really lift them high up. You still get decent shots from a good distance. Now it does only have a 5-round magazine, and it's loaded by a strip clip which takes 1.56 seconds to reload. Now the .567 isn't really necessary. Basically it takes a second and a half, that's all you need to know, and that is actually surprisingly quick, especially with the strip clip. Usually strip clips are longer, but this one is one of the fastest ones with a strip clip. Now for single bullet it's 0.53 for the first single bullet, and then weirdly enough it's 0.863 for the rest of them. Again, this isn't a huge thing. Basically it takes half a second on the first single bullet and then a second on the rest of the single bullet. Now the bullet velocity is one of the strongest features of this rifle. The bullet velocity itself is 820 meters per second, which is massive. It is one of the top 2 fastest bullet velocities in the entire game, so it is actually surprisingly good in that regard. Now the bullet velocity of 820 meters per second, this basically means you don't really have to lead shots. The bullet is traveling unbelievably quickly, so you don't really need to worry about, okay, I have to lead a good 10-20 meters in front of a guy in order to hit him. You have to really worry about first shot and then see how far ahead it is, but it won't be as far as some other rifles. Not to mention the fact that if somebody is sat still and you can see them and you shoot at them, it's going to be less time till the bullet gets them, of course, because it has a really fast bullet velocity. With other rifles you might shoot them and they might actually move before you can even hit them, due to the fact they might have a slower bullet velocity. So of course, stats wise, aside from the small magazine, it only has 64 rounds per minute, which is too slow to be used in anything close quarters. It is amazing. It is a really solid rifle. Now in game those good stats definitely translate over. It is still amazing in game. Like all other rifles, if you find that sweet spot you will dominate. Not to mention the fast bullet velocity and the fast reload, it really means that it has a huge amount of things going for it. So of course with all rifles the best tactic is to find that sweet spot. Really take your time with your shots, especially due to the small magazine on the Russian 1895 with only 5 rounds. You don't want to rush, because with some rifles where I have 10 to 15 shots, you can really just put shots down range and hopefully one will hit. Seeing as you only have 5 with the Russian 1895, you want to take your time, line up your shots and not miss many. Now due to the range you have, you can also afford to keep moving as long as you stay within that sweet spot. At the moment I wouldn't recommend using a bipod at all, seeing as there are so many snipers in Battlefield 1 right now that staying still is just an absolute death sentence. So when you're using this rifle, I would recommend moving them out as much as you can, really using that fast bullet velocity to be a nuisance and really get quick shots off before moving somewhere else, along with the fact of course that the damage in the sweet spot being 100 is actually a really good sweet spot, of course again between 60 and 93 meters. That's a really good distance where most of the time you should be in that combat range anyway. If you want to go up and lower the magnification on the actual scope itself, this is definitely a rifle to use for aggressive recon, seeing as the sweet spot is such a good zone, and whether the fact that of course bullet velocity is extremely quick. If you can get close enough, you're going to be killing people unbelievably quick as long as you can get one-shot kills. Now in real life the Russian 1895 is actually an American rifle. It is a Winchester 1895, and in the start of World War I the Russians made a deal with the Americans to send over millions to hundreds of thousands of these rifles to the Russian army for them to use. They found mixed success, and honestly I think it's pretty cool that there was a lever action used in World War I quite popularly. As far as I can understand though, not all the rifles actually made it there. A good 100, couple of thousand, 200,000 never actually made it to Russia because they put up the war too soon, and also the fact that the US didn't actually send them more over, but at the same time it is cool again to see a lever action in World War I. Now back in the game, of course, like I said, this is definitely one of the best rifles due to the fact it has an amazing sweet spot as well as a high bullet velocity. It is definitely in top 3. At the moment I'm still stuck between whether the Lee Enfield, Russian 85 or the Mauser 98 sniper variants are actually the best. You know, which one of those are the best. At the moment I'm going to cover that in a later video once I've used all of them and talked about all of them, and I will finally go up and give a definite answer which one is the best in game. Now to finish off this video, I'll talk about the other variants. The other two variants are the infantry and the trench. Now the trench I would avoid like the plague. It doesn't have a sweet spot, which is really odd. It does have a faster rate of fire, but it doesn't have a point where it can kill in one shot. So you kind of think, wait, what's the point of it? It does 90 damage maximum, meaning you always have to get 2 shots unless you hit the head. So that's really confusing to me of why they bother doing that, especially seeing as you go against any other rifle with a lever action, you're still going to lose. Because if it's fully automatic, if it's semi-automatic, they can get more shots at their range than you can. Of course, they can miss their shots, you can get the kill, that is a fair point, but how often does that actually happen? And then for the infantry one, I'd say it's a perfectly good rifle. It is basically exactly the same as the marksman variant we're mainly talking about here, but of course it doesn't have a scope on it. So you can still use it as aggressive recon, of course, and you can increase the modification on the scope to use it as a bit more of a sniper rifle, but if you're going to use it as a sniper, I would definitely recommend unlocking the marksman variant. I do kind of hope that we see more variants come in the future, maybe one that has a sort of mid-range scope to the point where it's not too far, but at the same time you definitely see people in that sweet spot, mainly because I kind of feel sometimes that the bipod is unnecessary on the marksman variant, along with the fact that the scope can sometimes just be too big, and I kind of think, well hang on, can we just get one that, you know, really fits the sweet spot of this rifle? Who knows, we'll actually see more variants. I kind of hope we do. Nobody knows yet if they're going to come in DLC or if we're not going to see any overall. Again, I kind of hope we do, because that'd be kind of pretty cool to see, I think. So hopefully you did enjoy the video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. More episodes of this series coming out soon if it does well. So far it's doing pretty decently. I kind of hoped it would the first episode, and I was right about that. So again, hopefully you did enjoy. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.